My son sent me a message that read, "You're out of the company. Don't contact us again. This is final." I responded with only 2 words. "All right then." After that, I set my phone down and immediately began removing his access. I secured the entire property portfolio my late wife and I had spent decades building. By the following morning, there were 46 missed calls on my phone. He believed I was old enough to be pushed aside, but he overlooked one crucial detail. I was the one who held the keys to every single door. Thank you for being here. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Have you ever made a split-second decision that changed your entire life? Share it in the comments. Your story matters. My name is Robert Callahan. I'm 60 years old, and I spent 3 decades growing Callahan Properties from one small duplex into a portfolio valued at $850,000 in Indianapolis, Indiana. My late wife, Eleanor, and I began with nothing but determination and a dream. We worked 7 days a week. We unclogged toilets at midnight, painted units on Sundays, and learned property management the hard way, one tenant at a time. Yet nothing in those 30 years prepared me for what happened on a Thursday afternoon in late February. I was at our office in Fountain Square when my phone vibrated. It was a text from my son, Andrew. I expected something ordinary. Instead, I read words that made my chest tighten. "You are no longer part of Callahan Properties. Do not come to the office. Do not contact us. Lauren and I are moving forward without you. This is final." I read the message again and again. My own son had just cut me out of the company his mother and I built together. For half a minute, it felt like the ground shifted beneath me. Then the part of my mind trained by decades of risk management took over. I didn't call him. I didn't argue. I typed one word. Fine. I pressed send and opened my laptop. If they wanted me out, they were about to understand what that truly meant. I logged into the Callahan Properties LLC portal and changed the master password. One by one, I reviewed every account, system, and authorization, removing Andrew's signing power. I removed Lauren's as well. Any permission tied to my authority was locked down. Then I contacted Samuel Carter, the broker overseeing the 8-unit apartment building we were scheduled to close on near Butler University. "Samuel, this is Robert Callahan. I'm withdrawing from the 8-unit purchase effective immediately. Written notice will follow within the hour." He sounded concerned. "Is everything okay?" "It will be," I replied before ending the call. Next, I phoned my financial advisor of 20 years, Gregory Hale. "Greg, freeze any adjustments to my retirement accounts. Nothing gets transferred, restructured, or signed without my physical presence and written authorization. Can you handle that today?" "Absolutely," he said. "I'll explain later. For now, just lock it down." After that, I emailed Kevin Marshall, the newer advisor Andrew had persuaded us to hire 6 months earlier. Effective immediately, all previous authorizations are revoked. Any transaction involving Callahan Properties LLC or related accounts requires my direct written signature, dated and witnessed. Do not process requests that fail to meet this condition. I documented every step, password updates, calls, emails, with timestamps. By 4:15 p.m., every door they assumed they could enter was secured, and I alone held the keys. By 6 p.m., the calls began. Andrew first, then Lauren. By the time I pulled into my driveway in Butler, Tarkington, the phone had rung 7 times. I walked inside, placed it on the kitchen counter, and let it continue ringing. I didn't answer. At midnight, I powered it off without checking the total. I sat alone in the dark living room where Eleanor and I used to watch television. The house felt enormous and painfully quiet. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," I whispered into the silence. There was no reply. Friday morning, the phone vibrated repeatedly against the nightstand. I turned it on. 46 missed calls. 22 from Andrew, 14 from Lauren, 7 from unfamiliar numbers, and 3 from Jonathan Pierce, the attorney who handled our LLC formation and every significant legal document for Callahan Properties. Those last calls tightened my stomach. I listened to his voicemail. His voice was steady, but urgent. "Robert, this is Jonathan Pierce. We have a serious issue. Call me immediately. Do not sign anything." I returned his call at 8:15. He answered instantly. "Can you be at my office in 30 minutes?" "I'll be there in 20." By 8:45, I was seated across from his desk. A folder lay open before him. LLC operating agreement amendments, membership transfer forms, signature pages. These were filed with the county clerk 2 days ago, Jonathan said. Andrew submitted them. They list Lauren as a managing member of Callahan Properties LLC with full signing authority. I never signed those, I said. I know, Jonathan replied, turning a page toward me. That's not your signature. The loop on the capital C is wrong. He was right. They're dated February 10th, he continued, 2 weeks before Andrew sent that text. This was premeditated. February 10th. 2 full weeks of forged paperwork before a single word was said to me. There's more, Jonathan added, picking up his phone and dialing Gregory Hale. After a pause, Gregory's voice came through, subdued. Robert, I need to tell you something. Andrew and Lauren met with me 3 months ago. They claimed you were becoming forgetful, that your memory was slipping. They asked about transferring assets into their names. A cold weight settled in my chest. And what did you tell them? I refused. I've worked with you for 20 years and never seen any cognitive issues. I told them any changes required you present at a meeting. They never returned. Thank you, I said quietly. Jonathan ended the call and reached Kevin Marshall. Kevin, this is Robert Callahan. What were you told about my involvement? Kevin hesitated. They said you had approved everything, that you wanted to step back and had signed off on Lauren joining the LLC. I approved nothing, I replied. If anyone presents documents suggesting otherwise, demand dated proof with verified signatures. I ended the call. 3 months. They had spent 3 months constructing this, whispering about my failing memory, shaping a false narrative, forging documents, while I remained unaware. Now I was fully awake, and I intended to uncover how deep this went. By Saturday morning, I understood the damage extended beyond legal filings. It touched my reputation, my professional circle, even my own home. At 9:15, I met Martin Hayes for coffee on Massachusetts Avenue. We'd known each other nearly 20 years through the Indiana Property Management Association. 10 minutes into our conversation, he said something that froze me. So Andrew's taking over since you're retiring for health reasons. I set my cup down slowly. What are you talking about? He looked puzzled. That's what I heard at the association meeting Thursday night. People were saying you were stepping back because your memory isn't what it used to be, that Andrew was assuming full control. Who said it? I'm not sure. It was circulating like common knowledge. The rumor had spread beyond advisors. It had reached the broader professional community. People I'd worked alongside for decades were hearing that I was ill, declining, voluntarily retiring, and they believed it. Martin, I said evenly, I am not retiring. I'm not sick. My memory is intact. What you heard is a lie. His expression shifted. Robert, I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I replied, but you need to know the truth. Andrew and Lauren are attempting to force me out of my own company. They've been spreading false stories to make it appear legitimate. I left the cafe and drove back to Butler Tarkington. Inside my home office, I opened the filing cabinet where I kept personal business documents, the one Andrew also had a key to. I had handed him that key 3 years earlier when Eleanor was ill. I pulled out the folder labeled Callahan Properties Operating Documents. Inside were drafts and paperwork I had never reviewed, amendments listing Lauren as a managing member, transfer forms, signature pages with my line marked pending in Andrew's handwriting. He had been preparing this inside my own home, under my roof, using the key I gave him out of trust and love. This was no longer just a legal dispute. It was a fight for my name. At 3:30 that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A text from my cousin on Eleanor's side, Victoria Hayes. She had always been perceptive, the type who noticed what others overlooked. The message was brief. You need to see what Lauren has been saying about you. Call me. I called immediately. Victoria answered. She's been posting online, she said, about you, about the family, calling you toxic, claiming she's escaping financial abuse. People are believing her, Robert. I closed my eyes. How long? Since yesterday, right after you locked down the business accounts. She's trying to control the narrative before you can. It was a war on 2 fronts, legal and reputational. While I gathered documentation quietly, a public character attack was unfolding in real time. They weren't only trying to take my company, they were trying to erase my credibility. 30 years of building trust in this community were being chipped away, one accusation at a time, by people who had no idea they were repeating a lie. I couldn't battle both fronts without enough proof for the truth to overpower the noise. Sunday morning, the phone rang again. This time it wasn't Andrew or Lauren. It was someone who worked alongside my son. What he shared confirmed my suspicions. "Mr. Callahan, this is Ethan Brooks. I work with Andrew. I'm the assistant property manager. I think you should know what's been happening." I sat down slowly. I barely knew Ethan. Andrew had hired him about 3 years earlier to help manage daily operations. He was young, maybe 28, capable with maintenance and tenant matters. "Go ahead, Ethan." His voice was low, cautious. "I've been concerned about Andrew for months. He's been stressed, not himself. Lauren is at the office constantly. She sits in on meetings, makes decisions. It feels like she's running things, and Andrew just follows along." "How long?" "Since around November. It started gradually, but by January it was daily. She'd tell him what to say to contractors, which properties to prioritize, even how to respond to tenant complaints. He just let her. I thanked him for speaking honestly. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about how subtly control can shift when you're not watching. Monday morning at 8:20, I received a forwarded email from Samuel Carter, the broker who had helped us evaluate commercial properties for 5 years. The subject line read, "You need to see this." The original email was from Lauren, sent Friday afternoon to Samuel and 3 other brokers we worked with regularly. "Dear Samuel, I am writing to inform you that Robert Callahan is experiencing early-stage memory decline and is no longer able to manage complex transactions. For all future Callahan Properties business, please contact Andrew Callahan and myself directly. We have full authority to proceed without Robert's involvement. Thank you for your understanding during this transition. Lauren Callahan, Callahan Properties LLC." I read it 3 times. This wasn't gossip. It was a formal statement to business partners declaring me mentally incompetent. At the top, Samuel had added a brief note. "Robert, I received this Friday. I've paused all ongoing discussions until I hear directly from you. Professional ethics require confirmation. Please clarify your status." I sat at my computer and responded. "Samuel, I have no memory impairment and remain fully competent. The 8-unit transaction is permanently canceled due to unauthorized attempts to proceed without my consent. Any statements suggesting otherwise are false and defamatory. I am copying my attorney and financial advisors on this message for documentation. Robert Callahan." I pressed send, then forwarded copies to Jonathan Pierce, Gregory Hale, and Kevin Marshall. Within the hour, all 3 replied. Jonathan called it actionable. Gregory described it as fraudulent. Kevin apologized for believing their version of events. By Monday afternoon, I had professional witnesses, written proof of defamation, and a pattern too consistent to dismiss as misunderstanding. Yet one question remained. What was Lauren truly after? Why escalate this quickly? Why risk forged signatures and public claims about my mental state? Andrew already had partnership status. He could have waited for a natural retirement in a few years. This level of urgency suggested something else, something hidden. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:45 Monday morning, Jonathan called again. His tone was different, quieter, heavier. "Robert, sit down," he said. "While reviewing court filings, I found something else. Lauren retained a divorce attorney." I was standing in my kitchen. I lowered myself into a chair. "When?" "February 10th. The room felt still. "Say that again." "February 10th, 2 weeks before Andrew sent that text." I stared at the kitchen table Eleanor and I had chosen 17 years ago. "Which firm?" I asked. "Danielle Harper and Associates. Divorce specialists downtown." She paid a $7,500 retainer from an account solely in her name, completely separate. She was planning to leave him, I realized slowly, even before they tried to take the company. "That's what it looks like," Jonathan said. I walked to the window. The weak February sun barely warmed the street outside. "What is her plan?" I asked. Jonathan paused. "I think she's helping Andrew take the company from you. Then she divorces him. Under Indiana law, assets acquired during marriage are subject to equitable division. She could claim 40 to 50% of its value. I did the math. $850,000, 40 to 50%, $340,000 to $425,000. She was going to help him steal from me and then steal from him, I thought. Yes, I stared out at the quiet street. My son had betrayed me for her. He had forged my signature. He had spread lies about my mental fitness. He had tried to take everything Eleanor and I built, and the woman he did it for was planning to take half and walk away. Andrew was foolish, guilty of everything, but also being used. Part of me wanted to call him immediately to warn him, but another part wanted him to witness exactly what I was about to show him. "Jonathan," I said, "do not tell anyone about this yet. Not Gregory, not Kevin, no one." "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I want to save this for the right moment. Can you get copies of those divorce filings?" "I already have them." "Good. I want to arrange a meeting Wednesday evening, 6 Gauss, at my house. Andrew, Lauren, and your attorney. I'm going to lay everything out at once, every lie, every forged document, every piece of evidence, and then, at the end, I'll put those divorce papers on the table and let Andrew see what he destroyed his relationship over." Jonathan was quiet for a long moment, then said, "Wednesday at 6, I'll be there." I hung up and looked around my kitchen, the dining table where Andrew once did homework, the counter where Eleanor made coffee each morning. Wednesday at 6 May, this table would show him exactly what he tried to take and what his wife planned to take from him. The certified letter went out Monday afternoon, drafted with precision. Cease all false statements regarding my mental competence. Retract all communications sent to business partners and professional contacts. Appear Wednesday at 6 p.m. with legal counsel present. Failure to comply would result in formal litigation for defamation, fraud, and attempted theft of business assets. I signed it, Jonathan mailed it, and then we waited. Tuesday morning at 10:30, I was in my home office when Andrew's car pulled up outside. He sat in the car with the engine running. The February cold made the glass fog slightly. I watched his silhouette for 22 minutes. He never touched the door handle. He never got out. Finally, he started the car and drove away. I stayed inside. At 3:45 p.m., a text from Andrew. "We need to talk before Wednesday. This is getting out of control. Let us work this out." I stared at the message for a full minute before typing my response. "You told me not to contact you. I respected that. If you want to talk, Wednesday at 6 p.m. with Jonathan present, not before." I pressed send. He didn't reply. Wednesday arrived, cold and gray. I spent the morning reviewing documents with Jonathan at his office. Every forged signature, every false statement to partners, every piece of the timeline showing premeditation. At the bottom of the stack, the divorce retainer agreement, February 10th, $7,500 from Lauren's separate account. At 5:30 p.m., I drove home to Butler Tarkington. The house was silent. I walked through rooms where Eleanor and I had shared our lives, the kitchen where we made coffee, the living room where we watched the evening news, the dining room where we raised our son. At 5:50, I cleared the dining table. The folder went in the center, 2 chairs opposite me, Jonathan's chair to my right, 4 water glasses, nothing else. The table where we once had Sunday dinners would now resemble a courtroom. Jonathan arrived at 5:55, briefcase in hand, reviewing the documents one last time. We spoke little. There was nothing more to say. Everything would be revealed in the next hour. At 6:02, a car pulled into the driveway. 2 minutes late. A small power play, likely Lauren's idea. Andrew knocked. I opened the door. No greeting, no handshake. I motioned toward the dining room. "Come in. Sit down." Lauren entered first, confident, head high, wearing a black blazer as if attending a business meeting. She sat directly across from me, meeting my eyes without flinching. Andrew followed behind her, looking weary and thinner than I remembered. He avoided my gaze and sat beside his wife, staring at the table. Jonathan took his seat to my right, legal pad ready. They sat across from me, the folder between us, 40 years of fatherhood, 30 years of business building, and 3 years navigating life without Eleanor. I looked at Andrew one last time, the boy Eleanor and I had raised. Then I opened the folder and began. 4 days ago, you sent me a text. You told me I was out of Callahan Properties. I trusted you, Andrew. I brought you into this business so you could have what your mother and I built, and you tried to take it from me. Andrew started to speak, but I raised a hand. You'll have your turn. Right now, you listen. I pulled the first document from the folder, the LLC amendment adding Lauren as a managing member, filed February 10th. This signature at the bottom is supposed to be mine, but it's not. Look at the capital C, the spacing. Someone forged my signature on a legal document. That is fraud, Andrew. He looked at the paper, then at me. No denial. Next, I pulled the document showing their attempt 3 months ago to manipulate Dennis Hale. You and Lauren went to him claiming I had memory problems. You asked him to help transfer assets into your names. He refused. You never returned because I had no memory issues. You were lying. I showed the financial summary, 30 years of growth, the $850,000 portfolio Eleanor and I built from nothing. Your mother's part of this business, Andrew, I said, voice catching. Every property, every tenant, every dollar. And 3 years after she died, you tried to erase her legacy. Andrew's eyes glistened with tears, but I wasn't finished. I pulled out a yellow envelope and slid it across the table. One more thing you need to know about your wife. Andrew picked it up slowly and opened it. I watched as he read the retainer agreement, the date at the top. His lips moved slightly. Marital dissolution, he said quietly. $7,500, February 10th, 2 weeks before you sent that text message. I said, Lauren hired a divorce attorney and paid the retainer from her own separate account. She was planning to leave you before you even tried to take my company, I said. Andrew turned slowly to look at his wife. This isn't real. Tell me this isn't real. Lauren said nothing. Her face remained perfectly calm. I continued, under Indiana law, assets acquired during marriage are subject to equitable division. If you had succeeded in taking Callahan Properties, Lauren could have filed for divorce and claimed 40 to 50% of its value, $340,000 to $425,000. That was her plan. Help you steal from me, then steal from you. Andrew stood, papers crumpled in his fist, his voice barely recognizable. I destroyed my relationship with my father for you. I forged documents. I lied to people who trusted me. I tried to take everything he built for you, and you were planning to divorce me the whole time. His voice cracked on the last word. He slammed his fist on the table, the water glasses jumping. Lauren stayed perfectly still, face like stone. I had watched my son go through every stage of grief in the last 5 minutes. Denial, anger, silent bargaining with himself. Now he was somewhere between rage and complete devastation. The woman he had sacrificed his family for had been planning to destroy him. The silence stretched. Andrew, breathing hard, papers crushed in hand. Lauren seated, expressionless. Then, without changing her expression, she spoke, calmly, almost like she was discussing the weather. I'm done here. She picked up her purse and stood slowly. Andrew looked up at her. She looked down. No change, no guilt, no shame, no emotion. What? She said. Andrew stared, waiting for an explanation, a denial, anything. She let the silence linger, then smiled coldly. Did I love you, Andrew? No, not once. Were you easy? Pathetically. Then she turned toward me. You almost won, Mr. Callahan. Almost. She walked to the door. Heels clicked on the hardwood. The door opened. The car door closed. The engine started. She was gone. The silence lasted 15, maybe 20 seconds. Andrew sat staring at the table. I stared at the door she had walked through. Jonathan spoke quietly beside me. I have documented everything said here tonight. Every statement, every admission. I can testify if needed. I nodded slowly, looking at my son. Jonathan will draft the documents. You will sign a complete relinquishment of all claims to Callahan Properties, LLC, or we file fraud charges by Friday. Andrew did not look up, his voice barely a whisper. I will sign. I started toward the door. He spoke behind me. Dad, I do not... I stopped, didn't turn around. You chose this, Andrew. You sent that text message. You forged my signature. You tried to take what Eleanor and I built together. I'm sorry she used you, but you still chose to betray me. Her cruelty doesn't erase your guilt. It only makes you a fool as well as a thief. I walked out. Jonathan would contact him about signing. Do not come back to this house. I got into my truck and sat in the February cold. Through the window, I saw Andrew still at the dining table, head in hands, Jonathan packing his briefcase. I started the engine and drove away. He didn't call, text, or try to explain or apologize again. The following Monday, Jonathan called at 9 a.m. It's done. Andrew signed everything. No arguments, no negotiations. Callahan Properties is yours, completely, legally, permanently. Thank you, Jonathan. I hung up and sat in my office. The business was mine. The properties were mine. Everything Eleanor and I built was secure, but victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. And the wreckage was everywhere. 2 weeks later, Andrew came to my office holding a folder. Dad, this is my future, a business plan. I need $25,000 to prove I've changed. I looked at the folder, then at my son. No, I said. Dad, if you would just look at it. No, I said again. If your plan is solid, find other investors. If not, you'll understand why I said no. I am not your safety net anymore, Andrew. You cut that line yourself. I turned back to my desk. I heard him set the folder down. Footsteps, the door open and close. I never saw the plan. I never asked what it was. 3 months later, in June, I closed on the 8-unit building near Butler University. I owned it outright, 100%, no partners, no family involved. I hired a professional property management company for day-to-day operations. Dennis Wright agreed to serve as my financial successor if anything happened to me. The business thrived. 6 months after the confrontation, I heard through acquaintances that Andrew was working multiple jobs, waiting tables, delivering packages, retail, living alone in a small apartment on the east side. He never reached out. Lauren had left Indiana. Divorce finalized. She got nothing from Andrew because there was nothing to take. I heard she moved south. Maybe Texas, maybe Florida. I didn't care. I hoped whoever she targeted next would see through her faster than my son did. 1 year after that February text, I was at the 8-unit building on a Saturday morning, fixing a leaky faucet in Unit 3. A tenant, a nursing student named Sarah, brought me coffee. Thanks for coming yourself instead of sending a contractor. Most landlords wouldn't do this, she said. I like staying connected to the work, I replied. After finishing, I sat in my truck and looked at the building. Eleanor and I had talked about buying a place like this, somewhere to build equity and help young people starting out. We never had the chance together, but I was doing it now. Margaret, I thought, we're still doing it. I hope you're proud. I thought of Andrew, too. I wondered if he was okay, had enough to eat, was warm, was safe. Then I reminded myself, it wasn't my job anymore. People ask if I'll ever forgive him. I tell them I already have. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It doesn't mean a relationship. It means I stopped letting his choices define my life. I protected what Eleanor and I built. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. Trust without boundaries invites harm. You can love your family and still refuse to be their insurance policy. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say no to the one you love most. If my story helps one person set boundaries, recognize manipulation, and protect what they built, maybe losing my son taught me something worth sharing. I drove home that Saturday afternoon with the windows down. The June air was warm. Indianapolis looked beautiful. The business was secure. The properties full. The tenants happy. I survived. I was still standing. That was enough. Looking back, I wonder what Eleanor would think. Proud? Would she say I should have fought harder for Andrew? The truth is, this story taught me something I wish I'd learned earlier. Trust is built over years, destroyed in seconds. And once lost, you cannot force it back just because someone shares your blood. Here's what I learned from this true story, and what I hope you take from these grandpa stories. Love your family, but don't let love make you blind. Protect what you build. Set boundaries before you need them. When someone shows who they really are, believe them the first time. I pray every night for Andrew, that he finds his way, that the lessons weren't too expensive. But my job is no longer to rescue him. It's to honor Eleanor and share these grandpa stories. Hard to tell, but true. And truth, painful as it is always worth telling.